All right, we are live. Sunny Days in Flushing. We're back. 2025 season is now upon us. The Super Bowl has passed. Unfortunately, the Eagles have won. Now my dog's barking. Eagles have won the Super Bowl.
He's not too happy about it.
No, my brother's thrilled because my brother's an Eagles fan. I think I've got somebody at my door. If you could take over here for 2 seconds.
I got you. So, like Matt said, 2025 season's upon us. We have, I guess, pitchers and catchers have reported. We've seen a little bit going on of what some of the new guys have brought in. Clay Holmes, I think, had some footage come out of new pitch he's working on, so that's cool. But we'll get into that later once we talk about players who signed, players out. But a lot of stuff going on in Mets land. Big off season, obviously the big news of Juan Soto, but even past that, some new stuff going on, some new uniforms, stuff like that, fun stuff. Nothing too serious, but cool stuff to touch upon before we really break down the meat and potatoes of what happened this offseason.
Amazon guy was at the door, and dog thought that I don't know what he thought. Thought it was a good time to explode. Where are you leaving off here? I apologize.
I just basically said we'll touch upon some fun stuff like the uniforms before we get into the meat and potatoes of who came in, who left.
Do you want to start? You want to start?
Yeah, I'll start. Obviously we know the blue uniform's out, this one. So if you don't get one, sorry. They're not going to be wearing this anymore, but they have a cool pullover hoodie with I guess it's the old school scriptive New York writing.
Mm-hmm.
So
they used it for 1 year.
Is it in the 80s?
In 1987. So I guess up until 86, they wore that, what they wear today, if I'm not mistaken, the Road New York. Mm-hmm. And maybe it had the racing stripe on the side. I'm really not sure. But that old school logo, a lot of fans have been clamoring for it, myself included. I always wanted to see them bring that back. And I think it's good that they're bringing it back on an alternative basis. Like, you're not replacing your road grays, right? Because the road grays are a classic. For me, that's my favorite uniform. And I am happy that they made that tweak to it. I think it looks great. But
is that official?
Though? That's official.
It is official?
That's
okay.
Official.
I love the whole aesthetic of it, too. Even the racing stripe down the pant. Like, it's a cool thing.
I loved it. I've met very few Met fans that don't like the racing stripe down the arm and the side, the pant leg. So I think it's great, and once again, I think it's great that it's coming on a temporary, like not a temporary, but an alternative.
It's replacing
basis.
This one. It's replacing which is a good jersey.
It was. I think it kind of ran its course a little bit. I was a little tired of it. If I liked any of them, any of the blues, I liked the road blue that we had for a while, the Road New York. I thought that looked great.
With the gray and the lettering and stuff. I think it was around the lettering.
I've seen supposedly that there's going to be a change again to the black jersey, but I haven't officially seen that, so I can't. I don't know if you have seen that.
Nah, I thought I heard they were going back to the white outline. I thought I heard that.
Yeah, there was.
Or they were doing some sort of update to it again, but who knows? They also could just bring back the 2024 one, which I did like myself.
I didn't think I was going to like that one, but literally seeing them come out in it once, it grew on me immediately.
I think the change to it needed to be. I think they were doing a small tweak. I think they were keeping the orange outline. I can't remember exactly what tweak they were doing to it, but they're adding white in some areas of it. Not 100% sure about that. Don't quote me. But I guess the City Connect is here to stay for this year at least too.
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
We have 5 jerseys.
It's the 4+1, the one City Connect, and it is such a stupid rule that MLB has. With the, you saw the NFL go away with the one helmet rule. I'm sweating a little bit down here. I just got out of the shower. You saw the NFL go away from the one helmet rule because that was just stupid. And I think the MLB's got to tweak it because you watch, and I don't ever really like kind of quoting or looking at the NBA for an example, but the NBA, they play 82 games or
82
whatever it may be, right? 82 games, and they've got 17 fucking. Now I think what they do is a little crazy. They've got a little too much, right?
Yeah.
But there's no reason we're playing 162 games here. There's no reason that you can't, have these teams have 6-7 different uniforms. From a money standpoint, if you're Nike, that's just more money for you to make.
Yeah, people are just gonna be selling jerseys. People are gonna be buying these jerseys.
This deal with Fanatics with, like, the reason being that they are strategically located around the United States, that they could sew anything, anytime, anywhere, and get it
Hmm.
shipped out, to the consumer in like 2 weeks, right? As much as they've they've botched that, that was the business plan of Fanatics in
Yeah.
theory. So like you should be able to have multiple jerseys, and I think it's silly that they limit them.
Yeah, agreed.
But I like everything that they've done. I'm excited to see it play out. We were just talking about the hat before we went live. I think the new spring training hat looks fucking awesome.
Yeah, I'm a fan of the orange hats.
If you haven't gotten a chance, definitely Google that. See what the guys are wearing. It's pretty cool. It's Mr. Met sunglasses on. I
Yeah,
think
some
it's
people
awesome.
don't like the mascots being on any hats, but it's not like they're gonna be wearing them during games. It's spring training. It's fun, and it's something
Exactly.
different. The Mets need. I honestly think they need to get an orange jersey. I wish their City Connect, even though I
Yeah.
do like it, had more. It was either leaned into the orange aspect or into purple, which it kind of leaned into purple, but I think the Mets are due for like an orange, like a orange base on the jersey, like the Los Mets jersey, which is really cool.
The purple is cool. I kind of wished, with the City Connect. I've told you this numerous
Yeah,
times.
flushing instead
I
of
didn't love the City Connect to begin with, but like whatever, it kind of grew on me a little. I think the hat was ugly.
yeah.
The only thing I would have said is it should have said Flushing or Queens instead of NYC. I mean, you kind of go around the league. The White Sox and the Cubs, kind of come to mind right away,
Yeah,
where they've got Wrigleyville and Southside written on there. So I
yeah,
think that's awesome. So um, that's kind of enough talk about uniforms, though. Let's
yeah.
go around the league a little here. Uh, the Mets obviously have made some big signings, the main one being Juan Soto. But I think before we get into some of the Mets signings, if we look around the league, what's the most controversial thing here, Bass?
Most controversial thing has to be what's going on out west in I guess Japan East in LA. I guess they're taking all the players from Japan and they've signed yet another one after he spoke himself and through his agent that he wasn't definitely going to the Dodgers. He felt like disgusted that was just the immediate thought that everyone thought he was going to go there because everyone else is, and sure as shit he ends up in LA, which not surprising to anyone really. Obviously we thought we had a chance, and that's I think bowed out a little bit earlier than we had hoped, but it is what it is, and it's disheartening to a degree. But in this same respect, what can you do? They have the money in these other teams that are spending pennies compared to the Mets and the Dodgers and all these other big teams. It just shows that you need to spend the money, and maybe something needs to change, but it's definitely not a salary cap; it's a floor. So
It's I don't have a problem with anything the Dodgers have done because
no,
it's within the rules, right? Like
yeah,
now
it's within the rules. It's not their
they've
fault.
been
It's more or less the contract.
they've been accused of kind of like meddling early with certain guys. I know that they
Yes.
were accused of that with Roki Sasaki, but like, listen, until any of that comes to light, until any of that comes to fruition, I'm not going to throw them under the bus. That's first of all.
No,
Second of
no,
all, like you said, if we're kind of looking around the league here, what have the Marlins done? What have the Nationals
nothing.
done? What have the Pirates have not signed a free agent to a multi-year deal? We're not talking 10 years. We're not
No,
talking a Juan Soto. We're talking about
two
a
plus
more
years.
than 1 year, right? The Pirates have not done that since 2016. I heard that this morning on
I
Talking
thought
Baseball.
they did one this offseason. I thought that it was their first one since 2016. This
Who did they
offseason.
sign? That they
I
signed?
can't remember, but I remember seeing that too as well. But it's crazy
But
to think.
the fact that that's even something that's said is ridiculous. It
Yeah.
is ridiculous, and you could be mad at the Dodgers if you're a fan of anyone other than the Dodgers. But like at the end of the day, okay, not every owner can come out and do what the Dodgers are doing, and that's fair, right? That's absolutely fair. But like, there is no reason why every team in MLB can't be rolling out in $100 and $120 million payroll.
No,
And like it's just like the excuses that we hear, like the TV money is there. All right. I mean, this is what I say to people. If you are going to a place, where you are paying $18 for a beer and like $11.50 for a hot dog, Don't feel bad for that guy. That guy's got money. Clearly. If they have the brass set of stones to charge you $18 a beer, they got enough to sign free agents.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And that is really the problem within MLB. And we're going to see this problem going forward when they have to negotiate a new CBA in two seasons.
At the end of next season, at the end of
Right?
2026.
So, and we saw a lot of Steve Cohen talking about that at the last CBA negotiation, that the fighting was not so much between the players union and the owners. A lot of it was between the owners themselves, because the owners that don't want to spend are looking at the Steinbrenners, the Cohens, the guys out in
the
LA.
ownership group of the Dodgers.
Right, you're making us all look bad. You're spending this money. Oh, we don't have this money. Like, it's a lie, because all of the teams that go over the cap have to pay into a revenue sharing block of money, basically.
It goes to them.
Dispersed to those poverty teams. And it's like the Pittsburgh Pirates. Like, you're telling me the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Steelers make an ungodly amount of money every year, and you guys can't make anything? It's bullshit, because every time this team is like halfway decent, that stadium sells out. That fan base goes insane. The same thing with the Cincinnati Reds. Anytime the Reds are relevant, that fan base goes berserk.
What else is around there?
There's nothing.
Exactly.
So to tell me that there's not money there, it's bullshit. And like, all of the money today doesn't even come from the stadium. It comes from TV.
Yeah.
Right? They're playing these games on Apple TV and Peacock and like all over the place.
Yeah.
All this costs money. So, and all of the gambling that we're doing on FanDuel and DraftKings and BetMGM, where do you think that money's going to? It's like 25% of that money has to go back to the league. Yeah. And that gets dispersed among teams. So to tell me that owners can't roll out a decent payroll is ridiculous. It's a lie. It's a constant lie that we're told. And like, you know, you could be mad at the players, I guess. Like, yeah, I don't feel bad for them. They're making more than me and you. But like,
oh yeah,
it ain't on them.
No, I mean, if a team's willing to offer them a ridiculous contract that they're not going to worry about how it's going to get paid. They're going to get that money regardless, one way or the other. So what do they care, especially if they're going to go to a team like the Dodgers, who are going to be a perennial, at least playoff team, if not a World Series winner for the next 10 years until Shohei Ohtani retires. So,
and I am happy to see, not just because the Dodgers are in the NL, but like it was really good to see. Like, I wanted Jack Flaherty. I was texting you every day about him. Sucks that the Mets couldn't get him. I guess he didn't want to come to New York, or maybe the Mets were not into paying him that amount of money. I didn't think it was a crazy contract at all.
No, I think it was mostly like
good for Detroit. And good
for
Detroit.
Athletics spent too this offseason too.
They had a decent offseason. I thought they could have spent a little more. I mean, I do think
more than other teams.
I think the contract that they offered Bregman was more than fair. It just so happens that, the Red Sox, I think, are definitely a more appealing organization to go play for. Yeah. A brighter future, definitely a brighter season.
No.
I think probably a brighter season. But
oh yeah, they look good.
But good on them. I mean, 6 years, 171, I think was the number.
176, I thought it was.
Whatever it is, that's more than fair for a guy like Bregman.
Came to like $28 million a year. He's getting $40 a year with the Red Sox, which is a lot of money, and it almost makes me feel like the Red Sox are betting against themselves there.
Yeah,
they were their worst enemy there, giving him that contract. But he does have opt-outs, so.
And I think similar to the Alonso deal, yeah. I think the Bregman deal is also great for both sides, right? Because a guy like Bregman gets that money somewhat that he was seeking. He gets it in the short term if he wants it. And he's got the opportunity to opt out and go through this whole process again. And if you're a team like the Red Sox, like, okay, you're paying a lot for him today, tomorrow, and the year after, but after that, you're not tied down to this guy. So I don't think that that's really a bad way to operate, especially when you're looking at the trajectory of third basemen in this league, right? How many third basemen still look this good at 31, 32 years old, 33 years old? You know what I mean? So if it's a disaster of a deal, they get out of it after 2 years. It doesn't hold them down for 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah, exactly. And it's good for him, too. If he has a good year, he can opt out. I mean, I can't imagine him opting out of a $40 million AAV, but who knows? He really turns it on this year. And I saw some stats that he has ridiculous stats in Fenway. Like his OPS is like 1,100 or something ridiculous. So maybe he's able to really put together a massive year with
It
that.
is a hitter's ballpark. I mean, when you think about
Oh,
it,
I
right? Like
mean,
that,
he's going to be
that
able to bounce doubles off that green monster
exactly. Like
all
that
year
that
long.
wall's an automatic double, and
And down the right field line.
that right field line, that fence is so small. I mean,
Yeah.
anything goes over. So, good for him. Good for
Yeah.
I personally, when Pete was at the beginning of his free agency, I really thought the Red Sox were going to be a bigger player than they were. I mean, it was kind of like us in Toronto. I mean, you kind of heard about Seattle, but I guess they were never serious. Or maybe
Well,
Pete wanted no part of Seattle. I don't know that.
yeah, what I saw a lot of was the Red Sox really wanted to move Devers to first base. He's not been a good defensive third baseman, so that was their ultimate goal. And I guess if push came to shove, they were gonna make a move and keep him at third and not get someone to play first base. But I think their end goal was to have him be a first baseman.
Right.
So,
Stevie Mac back. Good to see you,
What's up,
Stevie.
Stevie?
With us all football season.
yeah, almost there for baseball season.
We talked a little around the league. Around our division, Marlins did nothing. Nationals didn't do much. The Braves kind of seemed like they lost Max Fried, Charlie Morton,
And
somebody else.
AJ Minter. We got him.
AJ Minter to us, right? So the Braves, I think, are just kind of counting on guys to be healthy, and they had a down year, but this is still a strong team.
Oh yeah.
I think. I don't know where I would rank them with us. If I mean, I think you could kind of argue both ways. Kind of just
They're right there.
sheer doing it. Like you could they're probably a safer bet. But they're banking on the health of their guys. It looks like Ronald Acuna is going to be healthy. I think he's going to be ready opening day, if I'm not mistaken.
He is? I thought I saw he might not be.
I saw him taking swings, and he was literally putting them out of the park.
Yeah,
So
I guess time will tell once spring training develops.
The Phillies kind of did. I mean, they added some pitching, but they didn't really do much. I kind of expected more.
I expected Bone to be gone and them to be a bigger player for Bregman or someone else there. And I expected Castellanos to be gone, to be rolling out a guy who, he was good good against us in that postseason series, but he had another down year. He's getting older, and he's not this world breaker of a player, so he's someone that could really fall off at a certain point. And Schwarber's awesome, but again, he's someone that's not going to impact the game with his glove. He's not going to be an average hitter. He's going to hit home runs. He's going to drive in runs, and that's his game. And it's a matter of if he's going to carry you in the dog days of the summer. And he will in June. He will in June.
Have you ever seen those numbers?
Yeah, it's like a ridiculous stat.
I think he's like literally first all time in like every category offensively in the month of June. It's insane.
I'm pretty sure once you go to July and August, it's not good. Like,
no,
it's
like
not.
A stark it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Like I think I saw it. I think it's like something like 40% of I don't know if it was his RBIs or home runs literally come from the month of June, and that is it. That's insane. That's insane. Like we've seen guys like a Lindor, for example, right? He always starts off slow. Always starts slow, right?
And he finishes strong.
Start slow, and I think as the years have progressed here in New York, we've seen him pick it up a little earlier and earlier and earlier.
Well, even last year with a slow start to the year, it really was only the first 3 weeks, and the first 3 weeks were bad. But then after the first 3 weeks, he really turned it on. So when you really break it down, it's like a really slow start can hinder you for like a month or two, but then at the end of the day, it's all gonna come together.
It could really hinder, kind of like if you don't turn it on till like Mother's Day, that's gonna really impact the rest of your season. You don't realize it, but it's kind of crazy. But when you think about it, these players kind of dip and dive throughout a season. So yeah, I guess it kind of does make sense, because if you're having your ups and downs, but you had a month and a half period of just nothing, that's what it's going to look like. Anything else around our division?
Nothing really. I mean, I think the big thing for the Braves, obviously, is Acuna coming back and Spencer Strider coming back this year. Is he going to be ready for opening day? I know he didn't have full Tommy John. It was a brace, so that he's not the full recovery like a Tommy John, where he probably wouldn't be back until the middle of the season. I think the goal is for him to pitch opening day, but time will tell. That rotation is just ridiculous. Sale, Strider, Schwellenbach had an awesome year last year, and then I forget the other guy.
I would really, Schwellenbach killed us.
Yeah,
last year.
Schwellenbach. And there was another
Killed
guy
us.
too who was in the Cy Young voting.
I would really be very interested to see what Chris Sale looks like, because I mean, he won the Cy Young last
He
year.
did win the Cy Young. I think he won the Triple Crown.
He was unbelievable.
Incredible.
Unbelievable. And this was a guy that looked like his career was over like 4 years
Yeah.
ago. So I'm very interested to see what he looks like this year, if it was kind of a 1-year wonder or not. And yeah, some guys left. I mean, Max Fried's probably the biggest guy that they lost, I would say.
Yeah.
Charlie Morton had a, down season.
AJ Minter too, because AJ Minter, while the bullpen was still good without him at times last year, he had a hip thing, but when he was there, he was good. He was really good. So it's a matter of, how's that bullpen going to look without one of their top pieces?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like we could move on to our Mets here. Some of the players in, some of the players out. I think I could speak for both of us here when I say I am thrilled to see Jesse Winkers back. This is a guy that we hated forever, and he gave it right back to us, and it was great. And then he came here, and I remember talking to you at the deadline last year, and I was like, I would love to see us get Jesse Winkers. And like, I was like, it's never going to happen. They're not going to trade within division. And then they did, shockingly. He's been a great addition to this team. And it's like, I saw some people down about it. First of all, this is not a guy that's going to play. He's not going to play the field. He'll be a fill-in guy at times in the outfield, but he's not going to play every day in the field, first of all.
He's not going to DH every day either.
He's not going to DH every day either. So, like, this is a guy that was a really good I understand that you can't bring everybody back from last year because there were holes in this team, right? But and that being said, really sad to see Jose Iglesias go. I kind of had a feeling they were going to do that.
Yeah.
And
hopefully he gets a nice contract. I mean, I'm sure he's expecting something close to $10 million a year.
The Mets did offer him a deal, but it was like, I think, another minor league deal.
I think it was a 1-year deal. I think, there was no reason for them to offer him something more than that because they don't have the space for him. I mean, they have guys that are going to be coming up. Acuna.
Well, once you bring in Madrigal, which I think what Stearns is telling us is he sees a higher
Madrigal's
upside
expendable
in a Madrigal than he does in an Iglesias.
But then that too, I mean, if you're paying Madrigal half of what you're going to be paying Iglesias, he's much more expendable. He starts off horribly, or Acuna gets off to a red hot start either in spring training or in the minors if he has to start the season there. Yeah. He's gonna be the one coming up, and you can't have someone like a Jose Iglesias blocking him. Jet Williams, if he really turns it on in AAA and he's able to come up, you can't have someone like Jose Iglesias blocking him. Whereas you could have Madrigal just he's not going to block him at all.
That was also a really, really nice thing to see that Mendoza had announced two things that I think it was Mendoza that said it. It was either Mendoza or Stearns. I think it was Mendoza. Two really nice things that I had noticed from the first time they spoke to us. Jet Williams is going to be taking all his reps at center field. I think that's great. I think that's what they should be doing. I know they were doing a lot of that last. I think he got hurt last year.
Yeah, he did.
Prior to the injury,
early in the season.
He was playing center. That was great. And just listen, law of averages. Like we've got a lot of guys that can play second base. First of all, I know he was naturally a shortstop. Lindor's going to be there for a long time. Yeah. He's got a long contract. He's still playing tremendous defense. So the idea that Jet was ever going to play short wasn't going to happen. And we need center field. I mean, ultimately, as much as Steve Cohen's got the money, as much as he's willing to spend it, you need guys that can come up at these premier positions that you don't have to pay much, right? And it allows you to sign a pitcher or extend an Alvarez early, which I think they should be really talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's how the Braves have been so good. They've had guys come up and they've been able to get them on cheaper deals earlier in their careers and pay guys like nothing. Like we just spoke about Schwellenbach. He's getting paid nothing. I mean, Michael Harris was getting paid nothing.
I think Strider signed an extension.
Acuna, I mean, that was the most ridiculous deal, 10 years, $100 million. So he's on a nothing deal because they signed him so early. But again,
he's got an opt-out after 26, I believe.
Yeah, but still, to have someone of that talent being paid that little for so long, I mean, it's great. If we really want to be the Dodgers of the East, I think the Dodgers of the East right now are the Braves. But if we want to be that too, we're going to have to be able to stockpile a farm system where we can have them come up and replace guys that maybe it's not worth spending the money on, to sign them to longer deals, like a Pete Alonso. But obviously, we gave him the 1 year deal, but maybe it's not worth giving him that long 6 year deal.
Right.
Nimmo's contract. We love Nimmo, but that might not be the best contract in 2-3 years. So like having guys that are able to replace these guys instead of giving them the big contracts that are going to hinder you to an extent, in a couple of years once they start to fall off, it's a big.
The other big observation that I had made that I love to hear was them saying that they were going to move to a 6-man rotation as long as Kodai's healthy. We have heard this since Kodai got here. 23, 24, 23. When did he get here? 23?
23. Yeah,
we have heard this now. This is our third season that we've heard this, and they've never really committed to it. We have seen flashes of it, right, in August and September or whatever. Never really committed to it. Me and you had this conversation a million times, and I think your response to me was always like, I'll believe it when I see it. And I was kind of there with you. It's just like, for me, it's shit or get off the pot with this. Like, we talk about how Kodai's always better at home. We talk about how in Japan he was used to a 6-man rotation. Yeah. That's what we want to keep this guy in his routine, right? He's 32 years old now. You don't want to break those habits. Yeah. If this is what we're doing, then we've got to prep like we're doing it. And I'm very happy to see it. I don't love who we've got at kind of 4, 5, 6, but I don't think that it's permanent. I don't think come September, Paul Blackburn and Tyler McGill are going to be your 5, 6, unless it's because of injury, right? Someone goes down. I obviously that's what's going to happen, but
those guys are more your 6s. I mean, we do have David Peterson, I guess, as our, we have our top 4 set as Kodai, Minaya, Clay Holmes, and Peterson.
But and you've got Montas too in there.
And Montas would be your 5.
But I think that you've got, Tylor. We've kind of seen what he could do. We hope David Peterson could replicate what he did because last year, like very quietly, David Peterson was probably the Mets' most productive pitcher. There wasn't the body of work that Sean Manaea had.
Yeah.
But I think when you look at like most impressive, I think we would probably say we were most impressed with David because we've never seen this from him.
Yeah, he wasn't going out there and dominating lineups, but he was going out there and giving you a much needed 5, 6 innings and keeping you in ball games and being able to really be a stabilizing force in the middle, back into the rotation, which we desperately needed for some time. And I think with a lot of question marks, obviously Clay Holmes, what is he going to be? Montas, can he replicate what he did last year, I guess, in Milwaukee to an extent or even improve upon it? And then what are we going to get out of that 6th person? Are we going to get the good Tyler McGill? Is Griffin Canning going to develop into what he had showed earlier in his career or what he was drafted to be?
This year?
Did we see Brandon Sproat? I mean, do you see that mustache he's rocking? I hope to God we do. I mean, that's a man's mustache. So hopefully he can live up to it. And there's other guys there in the minors. I mean, the Nolan McLean is an option too, who has flown through the system. So there's guys there, and Jose Butto, which I guess,
and they committed to him being in the bullpen. That was huge. That was huge.
He's going to be the bullpen guy now, and he's probably going to be someone that's going to piggyback our 6th starter almost exclusively. I mean, it's going to be that day at spot in the rotation is going to be locked into Jose Butto, so you don't have to be committed to a Tyler McGill.
You think back to last year. You talk about the turnaround in this team. Who was there? Who was that long inning guy in the bullpen? It was Jose Butto. You think back to 2022. Who was that stabilizing guy in the bullpen to pick up where pitchers couldn't keep it going? Trevor Williams. Guys like that are so crucial to a season. Especially when you look at the playoffs, right? And how many times a team, think back to the 2019 Mets that were really good offensively, just very inconsistent pitching wise. But this was a team that was 3 games out of a playoff spot. Now, 3 games out is a considerable amount. I'm not sitting here advocating that they would have done something or the other. My point is a Trevor Williams, a Jose Butto type guy can be the difference between you gutting into the playoffs and you not. Now, after what we had last season, I think the expectation is a lot bigger than oh, let's be the last playoff team. Like we don't want to see that again, right? But guys like that can be the difference between you winning 95 games and 90 games.
Yeah,
As crazy
100%.
as it sounds, that is the truth. I mean, how many times do you see a pitcher just go off the rails in the second inning? And you're
Yeah.
kind of looking back like, well, we got 2 more games in this series. It's, it's going to be 95 and sunny all week.
Yeah.
Someone's got to save this game. We can't blow through the bullpen game 1.
Exactly. Or it could save a game in the respect that, like, a guy doesn't have it, and you gotta either now eat a game, have him just go out there and dog through it and basically hand them the win, or with Jose Butto, you're able to go to him early. He can give you 3-4 innings and hopefully keep you in a position to win the game, get to the back end of your bullpen, and hopefully your offense can take off a few runs and really bring you back into it. So someone like that, without having to either murder the bullpen or just basically hand other teams wins because you can't just murder the bullpen all the time, it is big, especially in this day and age of baseball where guys aren't throwing 150 pitches a game, aren't pitching 9 innings every other start.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I'm very happy to see it. And it doesn't mean that 2 years from now we can't see Jose Butto go back into the rotation.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it could.
Yeah.
The kid's young; he's got great stuff. I just
look
think
at Seth Lugo, Michael King.
Yeah, look at Clay
Holmes.
Clay
exactly.
Holmes, who's on this team. Exactly.
Now a starter.
Right? The Mets were not the only team talking to him about being a starter. That were his intentions, and I mean, honestly, I think when it comes to all the question marks on this rotation, I think I feel the best right now, knock on wood. I think I feel the best about Clay Holmes. Frankie Montas has played in New York before, was kind of lackluster. He's a project. I mean, a lot of these guys are projects, and but I think that I think I'm most confident in him.
Yeah.
When you saw what Severino signed for, were you kind of, because my reaction, and I knew we couldn't keep all these guys, and you shouldn't have kept all these guys, right?
Yeah.
Like a Jose Quintana, he's still out there. Do you really want to bring him back? Probably not.
Even though he was good down the stretch.
He was, but there's a lot of miles on that car. Do you really want to kind of put your faith back in that? So obviously you couldn't bring all these guys back, and I think that they did bring the right pieces back from last year.
Yeah.
But the one thing that my one kind of caveat, and listen, I have trust in Stearns, I have trust in Jeremy Hefner and Mendoza. My only thing was for the amount we paid Montas, I think I would have rather just given that money. I know Sevy signed for a little more. Sevy was 3 years.
22, 23 a year.
Yeah. Montas is making 18.
Yeah.
I think I would have rather just brought Sevy back. That's my only thing. Other than that, I really can't complain much. And I don't think the starting rotation that we've got today is, once again, what it's even going to look like maybe by the 4th of July.
No.
I think we're adding something else. I don't know who it's going to be, but I don't think
it could even just be someone from the minor leagues. It's not necessarily going to be an external move. It could be an internal move. These guys really show up.
Probably more likely.
But also, these rotations, I mean, how many times do you see 5 or 6 starters withstand a whole season? You never do. I mean, these guys don't stay healthy. Even if it's just missing 2-3 starts here or there because of a blister, because of a little tiny tweak or something, maybe, anything.
Up didn't feel right, so he's not
exactly a fingernail thing, a blister, random stuff. Maybe he tweaked his ankle and he's got to skip a start. So to have a plethora of pitchers, because I mean, look, we don't have a ton of the top end stuff, but we have guys in, like Griffin Canning, Paul Blackburn, Tyler McGill, all guys that could flex into the back end of that rotation. Plus, we have guys that are, coming up, and we could just switch back to a 5-man rotation if we really want to. Say, hey, Kodai, we're gonna have to go back to the 5-man rotation. The 6-man rotation is not working. So, it's these guys are hurting us. We can put someone else in the bullpen, like, one of these 3 guys that are our flex starters, and they could just help out in those respects. Guys go shorter starts. So,
yeah.
Thought.
It is interesting, the news that came out yesterday that, or maybe it was 2 days ago now, Nick Pivetta signed with the Padres. That was a guy I had my eyes on. I thought he was probably the safest guy to sign. Wasn't going to cost you a lot. I know he came with the qualifying offer, but me personally, I would have rather seen them sign him than give up assets for a King or a Cease. And that's not that I don't like a King or a Cease. I think if either one of those guys came here, I'd be ecstatic. In fact, I would advocate for that rather than go into the season with what we have.
Yeah.
That being said, to get those guys, you have to give up assets. And
100%.
I would kind of rather see this team give up assets at the deadline, because at the deadline, more people are going to be available. That's just the way it goes, right? So, but who knows? I think the Padres ownership, they've got some turmoil there. Original owner died, and now it's kind of being run by the brother. And
they don't have a lot of money to spend on these guys, these contracts they're giving guys. So it's
right. So
they're in a bad position.
Cut some bait.
I think Cease is one to look at. I think he's owed 15 million this year, something like that. You have other guys.
King's not making as much, so I think
like 5.
Yeah, I think they're probably more likely to keep King. I mean, unless some team comes around and offers a King's ransom, and starting pitching is funny like that. Like where sometimes we always say what starting pitching is worth, right? And it's like sometimes the deadline, you see a pitcher that's like average, right? Pitching to like a 4 and change ERA. And a team gives up a King's ransom, and then some of these other guys that are having a great season, you're looking at the return like this was it. This was what it took to get this guy. So it's the MLB trade deadline makes no sense. It is probably the most exciting trade deadline to watch.
100%.
But it makes no sense.
Like crazy.
The return that you see on these guys never adds up. Like, and I understand that, whatever, Baseball Reference or some of these other websites, what they value certain guys is not what these teams value them. And I get that, but it's like we were talking about today, the NFL trade deadline, you kind of know, right? Like you look at a guy and you're like, yeah, it's going to take a first round pick, or that's going to take, and sometimes we're surprised where we thought something, was going to take a third and it actually only cost a fifth. Okay. But like, it's nothing crazy. Yeah. It's like nothing earth shattering. With the MLB trade deadline, it's like, it's insane.
Yeah, well, you're not trading picks at the MLB in baseball, and sometimes you're trading established MLB talent for other players too. So you never really see that in the NFL. You never really see that in any of the other sports. It's mostly just picks, and in the MLB, it's all prospects and established talent. So it's a bit weird how things are valued. So it could be astronomical, or it could be at rock bottom.
That's something that really should be negotiated in the next CBA, that they should, because I mean, you hear executives talk about it all the time, that they would love to have the option to trade picks or receive picks in terms of, getting back talent. Especially in a sport where there's no real cap and there's no real floor, that like, if you've got a hole, you could hypothetically just plug that with a free agent. We're like in the NFL, can't always do that. Yeah. The NFL, you can't always just go sign a free agent, even if he wants to come to you, because you don't have the money to do it within the cap. You've got to, move things around. So, although I think the Rams and Eagles have shown us that the cap might just be a fantasy land anyway, because they seem to get whoever they want. Yeah. What else do you have here?
Nothing much. I mean, there's 2 big signings we did not talk about, or 3, I suppose. So,
you want to get into it?
Let's get into it. Let's start it up. I mean, who better to start with than Juan Soto? I mean, the most ridiculous signing aside from Shohei Ohtani that this league, maybe all professional sports, has ever seen. I mean, the guy is making $765 million over 15 years. That can even be escalated up over $800 million.
Yeah, it's going to be.
But this is someone that is 26 years old, and people look, he's hitting in front of Aaron Judge. Of course he's going to play well. He's 26 years old. He's just getting into his prime. And it's not like he's playing in front of some schleps here in Flushing. He's playing in front of Pete Alonso, Mark Vientos, playing with Lindor. And it's something that we've needed in this lineup for a long time. We needed someone that could really shake things up in between your big hitters, your best hitter in Lindor to Pete Alonso, and that could actually help you move Nimmo down in the lineup into the lower half and just lengthen it out astronomically. I mean, this lineup, while on paper looks very similar to last year, aside from Juan Soto, it's so much deeper. You don't have to worry about pitching around Alonso. Alonso doesn't have to stress about hitting the 5-run home run every at bat to keep us in games. And hopefully this can jumpstart Lindor earlier in the season. It just adds so much value to this team that is understated, I think, by a lot of people. And yeah, it's a ridiculous amount of money. But when your net worth is over $30 billion, who the fuck cares?
and I just love how, and like we always knew that Soto, Soto's moneymaker was not his fielding. I mean, we knew that, but
It
like
was his age.
I loved how when the Mets signed him, that's the first thing everybody said. Oh, wait till you see him in right field. Like, okay, wait till you see him get on base at a 420 clip and put 35 balls over the wall. Like, what are we talking about here?
Wait
Like,
till you see Starling Marte in right field last year when we made it to the NLCS. I mean, is
yeah,
Juan Soto a downgrade from Starling Marte? No.
and it's I hate to be this fan, but like this is the truth. It's like anyone that the Mets signed, anyone like Paul Goldschmidt going to the Yankees. I thought that was a fine deal. I think it's a step above what they had in Rizzo, and it's a 1-year plug, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. But and he's older, but like
Yeah.
this is a guy that's shown a lot of consistency, and I think
He
at
won an
Yankee Stadium,
MVP.
I think at Yankee Stadium, I think he's going to do well. But like if the Mets had signed this guy, right? If Alonso went to Toronto, right, and the Mets had pivoted and they signed Goldschmidt, the shit we would have heard for that. Oh, you're
No.
signing a 37-year-old first baseman. So it's just it's the bias that comes with being the Mets, and
Yeah.
until at a minimum until they make it back to a World Series, I just think that like this is what we're going to hear, this is what we're going to deal with, and that 15 years really gives them it gives them a chance, right? It's not like the Yankees last year where they had to do everything they could to make it to a World Series because
Yeah.
there was no guarantee this guy was coming back, and obviously he didn't. I think it just shows the pivot. It shows the pivot, and I'm not going to say like, oh, in this town, and like, listen, let's talk about that 10 years from now, right? Because like,
Yeah.
we don't know that now, but it does show the pivot. I think you saw it when the Mets traded for Lindor when Steve Cohen took over, and then they extended him before the season started. Like that has shown like, oh, okay, they're like they're kind of willing to spend here. They're willing to take some chances. And then you saw it again when they signed Scherzer and then Verlander, right? But those were like small deals. It was a lot of money, big AAV, short term. Now you see them commit to a guy for 15 years. Not only did they outbid everybody else, but they gave him the best presentation. And this was a
They
guy.
gave him the world.
They gave him the world, and this was a guy that, he didn't come to the Mets because of $5 million more than the Yankees offered. He came to the Mets because he truly believes that they're on a better trajectory than the Yankees, that they're on a better trajectory than the Blue Jays. I mean, maybe not the Dodgers, but he really couldn't go to the Dodgers anyway because they wanted to move his money back, and he wasn't willing to do that.
Yeah. Everything all right?
Yeah, I'm getting. You hear him? You hear him right now?
Oh, yeah.
I'm getting yelled at right now. What? What do you need?
But yeah, Soto is a franchise-changing player. I mean, this is something the Mets needed against the Dodgers last year when we couldn't get runs across the board, when, Lindor couldn't carry the whole load, Vientos couldn't carry the whole load, Alonso couldn't carry the whole load, and Nimmo was having a down year. I mean, aside from those three, I mean, you had Alvarez, who was up and down last year.
I gotta let him out in the backyard.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll be back.
No problem. And then, you have guys like Tyrone Taylor, who we were relying on to be a better hitter than he was. Jesse Winker, who, while we do like the signing, it wasn't someone that was playing well basically since he came to us. So to have someone in this lineup, that kid is an absolute threat through and through, and can just help these guys and work his at bats and get on base in front of guys like Vientos and Alonso, can be a protection for Lindor, is phenomenal. And someone that's proven it year after year after year at only 26 years old is just incredible. And, obviously we all know as Met fans what this does, to steal him away from the Yankees, to steal him away from the rest of the league. Yeah, we took us offering the biggest contract, and I think that played a big part into it. I know Matt said it had something to do with the fact that we might be on a better trajectory to the Yankees, but the money talks. Money talks, especially when Scott Boras is your agent. But, this is going to maybe not put us over the Dodgers hump, but it brings us right there, to be completely honest. It really does. And then a bunch of other signings that aren't spoken about. I know we signed Alonso and Minaya, but I think AJ Minter's another big piece. We haven't had that stud of a setup guy to really bridge the gap to Edwin Diaz. We really haven't. I mean, we've been trying to piece it together. We had Brooks Raley at a time, who was great. We had, who was it last year? Brian Stanek, who we also resigned after we traded for him after the deadline. And then who else? I mean, we were trying to piece together
Barzaban too,
Eatman
which
likes
he
and
didn't.
stuff. Brazaban. But that was we could talk about that another time. That's not something I want to talk about now. But Minter is that someone we've needed. Me and Matt have talked about Andrew Chafin for years, and we finally got someone like that. Someone that's better than him. AJ Minter. There's a stat. I think there's only 3 or 4 relievers that have. I forget exactly what it is. I think it's like 5 WAR over the or maybe 6 WAR over the past 3 seasons, and AJ Minter's right in that conversation with Tanner Scott and forget the other one. I don't think it's Josh Hader, but
I'm gonna assume he's the automatic setup guy.
Right? 100%. He's right there in the 8th inning. Him in the 8th inning. Ryan Stanek is going to be in the 7th, and then you got guys like Reed Garrett. Reed Garrett is a damn good pitcher. Daniel Nunez is a damn good pitcher. These guys, they're now not relied upon all the time to be that 8th inning bridge gap. They can come in earlier. They're guys that you can rely on to come in the 5th inning if need be, in the 6th inning to really hand the ball over and have the bullpen take over the game, as opposed to being like, now we need to get 6-7 innings out of these starters to get it to our ace or ace in the holes in the bullpen. We don't have to do that. We can. You're having a bad day. You're throwing a ton of pitches. Let's go. Let's go to Stanek. Or let's go to Garrett. Let's go to Stanek.
I think something that's not going to be spoken about for a long time, but might have been an under the radar good move. And I know we've all got nightmares of this guy, but Drew Smith, right? Like, this is a guy got hurt last year, so he's not going to be ready till about September, October, maybe. But like, that could be a really nice piece to have down the stretch, because once again, just like starters get hurt, relievers get hurt. They go down.
Yeah.
And end of the season, after the trade deadline, there's nothing really more you could add unless you've got it within your organization. Yeah. So to know that you've got a guy like that coming back, even if it just means to eat 2 innings in a September game, or you're up big in a playoff game, and you don't want to use Stanek because you used him yesterday, and you can kind of throw this guy out there. So like, it is important making a lot of those small moves, which they've done.
Yeah.
And who I sort of heard you talk about Stanek and
AJ Minter. I mean, I guess the last one is Pete Alonso. I know Stevie Mack just said. Yeah. Stanek said he had other offers. He wanted to be a Met. Alonso too. He had other offers on the table. The Blue Jays offered him a deal. He was fielding offers of other teams, but he basically shut that all off and said he wants to come back to New York. He wants to come back to Flushing.
Shame on
Boris
and Boris. Really, the both of them.
More so on Boris. I mean, you can't fault Pete for wanting to get his money. He wanted to get his money. He bet on himself, and it didn't work. But then he kind of got screwed over, because I bet Boris offered him a lot more than.
Yes, I'm sure Boris had that big presentation that he shows everybody else. Yeah. But I feel like Brandon Nimmo kind of laid out the blueprint for Pete Alonso, and I don't know, maybe Pete just didn't see it, but Brandon's a guy that could have left, and I believe Brandon's a Boris client. Brandon could have left, and Brandon had the last thing he had said in the Mets uniform before going to free agency was, "Remember, my agent works for me. They have to. I tell them what I want, and their job is to go out and get that." And Brandon made it very well known he wanted to stay on the Mets, and the Mets, I'm sure that was not an easy negotiation, but the Mets sat down and they worked out a deal for him to stay. And he had more money on the table, I believe, from Colorado, and he said no, he wanted to stay here.
That's so close to home for him. He's from Wyoming, so
right. And Pete had the opportunity to kind of do something like that, and he didn't.
He did at the end. It took
in the end, but even when it was at 3 years, 72, 75, whatever it was, he still said no. That's stupid. That's really stupid. You overplayed your hand, and they were giving him opt-outs, same opt-outs he had in this contract, but there was a 3rd year. So, he gave up a lot of security. And listen, guys bet on themselves, and sometimes they're right, sometimes they're wrong. I think a guy like Pete should have read the room a little better. I think he should have kind of looked at, hey, who's hitting free agency at the same time as me?
Yeah.
He should have looked at that, and he should have. I think Steve me and you don't know Steve Cohen, but just from everything we've heard from every free agent that signs here, like Steve is willing to sit down with anybody and negotiate a deal. And Steve is willing to give things that a lot of other owners can't. Access to
Yeah.
point 72 and in the investing and how they could set you up post retirement. So, and listen, these guys get that from other places anyway. The point is that Steve is a guy that can hammer out a deal. Steve is a guy that unfortunately sometimes negotiates with his emotions when it comes to this team. But like there was a way that a deal could have been made.
Yeah.
And I think it's not always about hitting free agency. If you look at like Pete's body of work, like you've never had an MVP. You've never really been close to an MVP. They were offering you 6 years, 172, 175,
156.
156. Like,
Yeah.
you probably
That was
could've-
also what's his name? Epler that offered him.
that was Billy
wasn't
Epler. But
Stearns.
like, still, I don't know. There was probably something to work with there, and he was looking for $200 million. At the end of the day, was it worth it? Was it really worth it?
No, but now he's in a better situation with the Mets. I mean, the lineup's better. He's
I
going
think
to
the
perform
Mets are in a
better.
better. I think the Mets are in the best situation possible with him. I think he personally is not in a good situation.
Well,
mean,
he's going to get his money out this season. I don't expect him to have replicate last year or even the year before that, 2023, which he had a great year for home runs. So I think you'll see you'll see closer to 2022 Peter, even rookie year Pete. But with this lineup, the way it's constructed, so. But yeah, it hurt him in the long run. But I think he will make his money back, and hopefully,
you
get
think he'll
himself a
make
good
that
year.
full 150, 156 back?
I think he'll come close to it, including this $30 million he got this year.
Mhm.
So I think there's also it's a player option after this year, and I
Player
think
option.
if
Yeah,
he picks it up, it's $25 million.
After that's 24. Same thing. Yeah,
24.
it's 30
So I
this
guess
year, 24 next.
No. So he has an option to stay. I expect him to exercise that and hit free agency again, and we'll see if he comes back. I mean, I hope he has a good year, and I hope he puts the Mets into a tough situation where it's like we had an awesome year with Pete. He brought us to a World Series, or he brought us, steps away from World Series, and he was the catalyst in that. And now we have almost no option but to sign him to a big deal.
Well, not necessarily, right? And what makes this so great is that Pete next year, if he opts out, the other guy, notable, that plays first base, that is on the end of his contract, is Vlad Guerrero Jr. He's going to be dictating a lot of money. A lot of these owners are not going to be willing to spend that money on. So just like the Mets were in a bidding war for Juan Soto, with really 4 or 5 other teams, I would estimate it's going to be the same thing. I think there's probably going to be under 7 teams that are seriously talking to Vlad Guerrero Jr. So if you're the Mets, this is a win-win. If this guy opts out, okay, well, at the end of the day, like Vlad's the better player. So Vlad will sign first.
He's younger.
Right? Like Vlad is going to sign first, and Pete will think that that's going to set the market for Pete, right? Because whoever doesn't get Vlad will now have a shot to pivot and start talking to Pete. Well, if you're the Mets here, you do everything you can to get Vlad, and then if Vlad won't come back and if Vlad won't come here, he goes somewhere else, and Pete had a monster year, okay, then you just throw a bunch of money at Pete, and you can bring Pete back. So, like, if you're the Mets, this is an end. If you're really lucky, Pete doesn't opt out, has a great year or a good year, doesn't opt out, and you could still sign Vlad, and you're only you're not worried about anybody else. So, I think that this is this was best case scenario for the Mets, truthfully.
Yeah.
Because honestly, if we do want to keep Pete, we still can.
Yeah,
Like we're the team he grew up. We're the team that the organization he grew up playing in. We're the only fan base he really knows. So yeah, we've got as good a shot as anybody at keeping him. And if we want to kind of get better, and I think we should, I don't care what Pete does this year. If Vlad Guerrero Jr. is available, you go after Vlad Guerrero Jr.
Unless Pete goes and puts up 60 bombs.
Right. Then that's another story. But
then that's great for the Mets. It's all I think.
If Pete puts 60 over the wall with the rest of this lineup, we're probably looking at a World Series.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Mets are in a great position either way with Pete Alonso. And I think Pete Alonso, obviously he took a hit. He could have taken 6 years, $156 million, but he's also in a good position because he's in a better lineup. And he has the ability to still hit free agency at a young enough age where he can get a 5-6 year deal.
Yeah. I mean, I think the way free agency's gone, I don't think he'll see 6 years. Truthfully, I see him signing closer to like a 4, maybe a 5. I mean, we just saw what Bregman. Now Bregman was offered 6 years, but it didn't have the AAV that he wanted. So it's going to be interesting, but nonetheless, I think this lineup is in a really good spot. One guy we haven't spoken about here as we wrap things up, I'm really looking. I wasn't even thinking about him, but yeah, Sean Manaea. I'm looking at Francisco Alvarez to have a big season. This is a guy that's like so up and down. You've seen what it looks like the best of Francisco, and holy shit, does it look incredible.
Well, one thing, not to get into the technical aspect, we're not guys that break down swing. We don't do swing analysis, pitch analysis, or anything like that. But I've seen some clips of him in the batting cages off season, and his swing looks fucking awesome. It's like, I think the big thing that most people can point at, even as just casual fans, his swing is long. His swing's really long. He has a tough time getting to the high pitch. He has a tough time. Really fighting off those sliders and everything, and anything down and off the plate. He shortened up his swing, and if he could shorten up his swing, and that's JD Martinez getting to him. Shout out JD Martinez. If he could really make some
awfully familiar to that JD Martinez swing. That's first of all.
Yeah.
The big thing with Francisco Alvarez, I want to see this year, and I want to see it out of Vientos too. As great a season as Vientos had last year, he had some trouble with breaking balls. Pitch selection, both of these guys. Yeah. I want to see both of these guys have more competitive at bats. As great as Vientos was last year, was a lot of strikeouts, and we anticipated that, right? That was what he did. Alvarez, he's just got to have better at bats, because when he puts bat to ball, they're not all going out of the park, but man, they are flying off at 98, 100 miles an hour. And I mean, it was like every time this guy put a ball over an outfielder's head, or even in front of a outfielder, it was a fucking bases clearing ball, whatever it was. I mean, this guy hits it hard. It screams off the bat. So if we could just get him away from swinging at shit in the dirt, swinging at things that are like 2 feet outside. I mean, he's got a little Javi Baez in him, and that's kind of like, yes, you get those magical hits at the most oddball times in a game. I mean, if you look at a lot of these 2-out rallies last year, they were started by Francisco Alvarez.
Yep.
And they didn't all go out of the park. Like, a lot of them just bounced off the center field wall. But sometimes that's what you need. Sometimes that's more important, especially in the era of a pitch clock and pitch com, and the pitcher can, 3-batter rule, right? The guy can't just come off the mound, every time, and you can't have 30 mound visits. Like, I think, in my opinion, those doubles are more valuable than a home run, because a home run, the pitcher's got 2 minutes to collect himself. A double. A bases clearing double, like, you're right back into it in 40 seconds, 35 seconds.
Now you're in the blender thinking about what am I going to do next?
Exactly. So if we could just see Francisco Alvarez just swing at better pitches this year, and have a better pitch, I think if this guy had a better pitch selection, you'd see him hit 275.
He's still young as hell.
I really believe it. And he's young. He's very young. And this is a guy
22, 23.
I would love to see the Mets extend before spring training is over. We probably won't happen.
Never know.
It's one of those things that us as fans, we talk about all the time, but the price on a guy like that is only going to go up because there's not a lot of catchers. First of all, there's not a lot of catchers that the entire pitching staff wants to throw to, bullpen included, right? And he's that guy. And he had that effect with Verlander. He had that effect with Scherzer, with DeGrom. And he's got it with the guys that are here now. And this is, he's a power bat. He's a spark plug. He's a literal spark plug. Like, you have no idea. When he comes up to the plate, you have no idea what you're about to see. Could be a strikeout, could be the ugliest strikeout you ever saw in your life, or it could be the hardest ball you ever saw hit to center field. So, and there's no part of the ballpark, when you watch him, there is no part of the ballpark he can't hit to. There's nothing. He's not a guy that favors one side. Like, this is a guy that just every time he hits it, he's ripping the cover off the ball.
Yeah, I hope we get more of that this year.
So, We tried to stay away from projections for today. The roster is somewhat complete, but especially with Stearns and company, you have no idea what they're working on. There seems to be no leaks in this front office, so a trade could happen at any point. Guys could get brought up and down.
That Stevie Mack said in the comments. I mean, last year you saw Stearns just cut bait with guys, just gone, bye-bye. Adrian Hauser, Jake Diekman, Joey Wendell, Joey Wendell. So, guys are going to be up, down. We know what the core is
Brooks
going to be
Raley
like.
is still out there, right?
He is still out there. That's right. I forgot about it, but he won't be ready till at least the All-Star break. I mean, he had Tommy John last year, so
But that's another guy. That's probably a
no.
guy to sign today if you could.
You never know. Yeah, you never know. So the roster's going to change. We'll get a clearer picture too come spring training in a couple weeks. We'll see what this team is going to more so look like opening day. You know, injuries can happen. You never want that to happen, but you know they do happen. And you know you got guys waiting there that can come up at any moment. Drew Gilbert, Acuna, guys that can make a big splash in spring training and force Stearns and their hands to be like, we need him here. You know what I mean? He's better than what we got. You know, those are two guys that very well could be better than Jose Siri or Tyrone Taylor in center field. Acuna could be better than Jeff McNeil or Nick Madrigal at second base. So
I think he's already better than Jeff McNeil. I know. I really just don't want to see Jeff McNeil on this team anymore. I can't do it. But we'll see. We will. We haven't really finalized a set day of when we're going to be doing shows, but we wanted to catch up with everybody, get back on the mic, get back on the show.
As spring training progresses, we'll
yes.
you know we'll hammer down one day a week at least to do this.
Mets are playing next week.
They are.
What day? Yes.
Thursday. I feel like spring training always starts on a Thursday.
Let's see here.
Yeah, the opening day in spring training was. Let's see. Pull up the app right now.
Tab open.
I got MLB open. We play next Saturday. It's next Saturday against
next
Houston.
Saturday against the Astros. Split squad game. Yeah. And it'll be on SNY. So that's great.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Love that.
I don't know why SNY doesn't just get every single spring training game. Like, what else are they showing in the off season? That's the shit I never understood. Not every game is televised. Some of them are only radio. Like, I don't know. I hated that. I always hated.
Well, I don't think they don't travel with their camera crew. So I guess if they're technically away from their facilities,
but you could use the other team's camera crew. That's what they do in away games anyway. You only send. I think it's like 5 or 6. I shouldn't say a number, but they don't send all of the cameras that are at Citi Field. They don't send all those guys on away games, but like you still send people. I don't know. They essentially use the other team's feed on an away game. They just control what camera is where.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know. I don't know why the same thing can't be, for spring training. But
it's a mystery.
All right. Thank you everybody for tuning in. We will see you at some point next week.
Yep.
And let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.
Oh boy.